when I the EMAG2, when I checked the EMAG2 for that, I realised, well, it had been mapped, but for some reason they'd completely blanked it out.
Mm.
I thought, interesting, why have they done that? And so I thought, I'll jump to another satellite, and I went to the gravitational anomaly, but you hadn't done it with that. That was still there. And there was a huge bank of gravitational anomalies right where the UFO phenomenon is taking place. But they didn't actually get rid of the information on the grav satellite. They only took it from the electromagnetic, because there's a combination of phenomena that takes place, you see. Because what we found was there's a saturation of gravitational anomalies in areas where there's a high amount of UFO activity taking place. I think it's purely the manifestation of the phenomena creates this residue, which is measurable as well, because we've measured it with time displacement meters, which
Right,
they're
I
very
saw
powerful.
that. So
Yeah.
it's the same. It's leaking over between the paranormal and the UFO field too. You said that there was a time displacement for the.
Yeah, I mean, we're only getting about between 12 and 14 milliseconds, but we shouldn't get anything unless we've got little black holes opening up somewhere. We shouldn't have that. However, it only lasts for 48 to 72 hours, so it's kind of got to be there quite reasonably fast to do the testing. And we've tested it at 16 different locations, and we've got 13 hits at 16. So the consistency of that means that, yeah, there's definitely something to this. But it's only short-lived, and I think when they manifest in this area, these objects, and then go off to do what they're doing, it would seem that that area is somehow saturated to a certain degree, which if you're there, can get there within the first 72 hours, there's a likely chance that you can actually measure it, which means that you're actually finding evidence of some type of phenomena taking place where that activity is. So it's kind of must be connected somehow. You know.
Wow, interesting. Well, I'm going to try and get that. I got the magnetic ley line too, and you can overlap the magnetic ley line as well as the magnetic anomaly map, and then really be able to see it.
Oh, yeah.
Gravitational.
Yeah. That's our third phase of research. That's when we really start knuckling down. We can get this to the mile, basically, you know, and we can basically see the areas of affection, which is really interesting because, you know, I mean, I just had a case come in today. You know, some woman has fled a house in tears, dark apparition at the bottom of the bed, stood there with its hands folded and left a handprint on the bed. What's really interesting is that the handprint on the bed is the top of the hand, not the bottom. You're trying to figure that out, but it's actually the top of the hand, and it's a perfect handprint. And she fled in fear. We checked. Now, there's only, six or seven magnetic anomalies in the UK. There aren't many. Scotland's got a few, but there are probably about 5 or 6 small little tiny ones in the UK. She's banged right on one, you know. And again, it's just another tick in our research to say, you know, these very active phenomena, be it paranormal or otherwise, is consistent with because what they do is it pulses like a heartbeat. So you get over a 24-hour period, it will increase about 2 miles and then decrease about 2 miles, and it just kind of goes like this, you know. But she's right in the heart of it. You know,
when does it do that pulsing? Did you say something about sunset and sunrise?
Yeah, because, you know, it decreases the nearer we get to the sun setting. Sorry, it increases by the time the sun's setting. So that's when the increase is, and then it decreases by dawn. So you've got this, and that ties in with the Earth's normal magnetic field, which is the magnetometer type stuff,
right.
which you normally get because of sunrise and sundown.
Right.
It's tied into that, definitely tied into that. So it seems to react. I mean, people have said, you know, when we talked to some of these ancient people, you know, that lived in these places around the world, they said, "Oh yeah, you've got to be there when the sun sets." So why? So because that's when it happens, or that's when the door opens, and they refer to them as door openings. And I've been to those locations, and boy, yeah, doors do open, and voices come flooding through. We've no idea what they're saying because it's not even in a language that we understand. We've recorded it, you know.
That was like the one that you told us about in Ireland.
Yeah. There was one in Ireland. There was one in Peru. There's one in Bolivia. So we found 3 of active doorways at sunset. And people
Where
always...
there's a voice coming through in each one of them?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But we don't understand the voices. There was one; it was sounded like a crowd of people. It was just crazy. But the thing is that you start to think into this and look into it deeply. You start to think, oh, hang on a second. Why do people think that more paranormal phenomena takes place at night? Well, it's when the sun sets, because you've seen an attribution of increasing energy in regarding the breadth of paranormal phenomena to take place, and there seems to be slight decreases in temperature in those regions as well, not just because of the paranormal, but probably because the manifestation of the phenomena, when it manifests, something opens. We don't know if portals exist on a microscopic scale. We know that the large ones do because it seems the UFOs and things are tied to them. But they could be on a microscopic scale that we can't map. We haven't been able to do so. So much small that it can manifest in a home. And when it opens, the phenomena comes through, that opening causes a decrease in the temperature in the environment, We do know that, we can pick up things in the thermal range. We also know we're picking things up in the infrared realm and infrasound. So just as UFOs are exactly the same, UFOs and infrasound are connected.
Yeah, so the infrasound one in your lecture was connected to the UFOs coming, the infrasound, and the hums that people were hearing in.
Yeah, the people have been plagued with it. I mean, the thing is that what's really interesting is that we've measured the hum in number of locations around about 48 hertz, which it's very, very low, very low. 48 hertz, but people are and some people who are being adversely affected by it, where other people can't hear it. Most people can't hear it, but some people are affected by it. And they're all over the world. There's a number of these different locations which are affected by the hum. But again, cross-reference it with the Earth magnetic anomalies, and you'll find that phenomenon is tied into the locations.
Well, the magnetic anomaly is tied into location of the hums as well. Oh, I didn't know that. But you were also saying that people who had seen UFOs and who had heard the hum from the UFO.
Yeah, they take it away with them. It's as if like they're not the same when they've had the experience. Something has been added, or something has been opened, so that they might come out of that location, and yet occasionally they'll still hear the hum. They'll be sat home going, "Damn, can you hear that?" And people have been driven mad with it, But then sometimes, you can get days where it just switches off and is nothing and is pure, oh, it's fantastic, and they've said this, and then the next week they're completely plagued again, and it's a very annoying sound for them.
And so would that be tied to the anomaly then? Like why would the sound come on and off?
Well, people who've had experiences of the hum have category one is that they've had an experience, they've seen a UFO, they've had paranormal phenomena or something of that occurrence, or they've been in a location where that activity, they might not have experienced it, but they've been in a location where that activity has been taking place. Usually one or two. So there seems to be either way or the side of the coin is a connection somewhere between this very low level humming sound and the location or the phenomena, one of the two.
And with the noise that they would be hearing in their ears, would that be a low hum too, or the high-pitched tinnitus?
Well, this is the problem, you see, because we're trying to ascertain are they actually hearing it in the physical sense, because there's two different ways of hearing. There's metaphorically, there's harmonic hearing, which is the ear is designed to do, but beyond the ear and what it's designed to do, there's transplacement sound. And the thing is with transplacement sound, it's exactly the same as paranormal sound. If we're walking down an example, we're walking down a haunted building, we both suddenly hear a voice come flying out of the air, what you doing here, for an example. But coincidentally, yours and my recorders are running at the time. But the recorders don't record it because it's not harmonic, but yet we both heard the same thing and we both correlate each other exactly what we heard. So we both know we both heard the same. It's not just me saying, oh yeah, I heard what you heard. We both say, don't say what we said, what we heard, write it down. We both heard the same thing. That's transplacement phenomena. That means it's transplaced directly into us because we're equipment. We are equipment in a sense of speaking. No phenomena actually is recorded on any devices. People think going around for years going, oh, I've got this EVP in it. Nothing is recorded. It's transplaced. It's actually purposely put on there, because it's not they're not hearing it. They're not saying, oh, did you hear that? And I recorded it. And most of the times is that they ask a question, it's complete silence, they play back and I've got it because it's not harmonic. And the equipment that we have, these wonderful little recording devices, they're designed to pick up harmonics. You look at the frequency range of these recorders. Why would they make a recorder beyond human frequency range? You wouldn't. It's not necessary because we wouldn't normally be able to hear it. So they don't manufacture it like that. They manufacture these from 19 hertz. It's going to get about 1 hertz below human hearing. Only 1.
Right.
But these things are picking it up. But when you actually measure them, they're measuring coming in sometimes at the infrasound. And yet, when we record them back, we can hear them, but we shouldn't be able to hear infrasound. So through the structure of placement, it comes in infrasound, and they place it directly on the equipment in a frequency for us to hear. It's all purposely done. It's all the plan. Mm-hmm. Nobody actually records anything. It's just transplacement. Mm-hmm. What's really good is when you get a recording, you ask them, "Where are you?" And then you suddenly find they're not even where you are. They could be 10 miles away. We talked to one guy. He was claiming he was in America. He said, "I'm in America." I said, "Well, you're in America. Tell me whereabouts in America." He tells us whereabouts in America. And we're thinking, well, hang on a second. That whole theory of walking around a haunted house and going, "Oh my God, I've just got an EVP. This place must be haunted." Right. No, because apparently it's transitional. So in other words, you can catch a recording on here from something that's not even in the environment. Wow. So not necessarily does an EVP catch it in the building mean that it's actually generated from that location.
So did he know what that one that you were talking to, did he know what you were doing? Could he see you even though he was in a different location?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like, it's amazing. We talk, we say a spirit, we don't know because they just call themselves that. But it's this particular spirit, a female spirit, said he was with one of our daughters. That daughter lives over 160 miles away. Hmm. We've done this by telephone, I said about over telephone, we're doing a session some 100 miles away, a special operation, special tests being carried out 100 miles away. We get to the level of obtaining intelligent communication, some DVP, direct voice phenomenon as well. So on that telephone call takes place to me, 100 miles away, and I'm actually doing something, and the so-called spirit is going to tell them 100 miles away what I'm doing. And my end was recorded, and their end was recorded, and it relayed to them exactly as instantly, absolute instant, as soon as the question was asked, what's Steve doing at this very moment? Bang, there's the answer. It's as if like they already knew what I was doing 100 miles away to deliver that information. Sometimes we're just about to ask the question. Sometimes we're not even wrote down, and we'll get the answer come forward on the recording devices. It come through, and it's given the answer to the question we're not even asked yet. So it's the demonstrations into the physics of this. They tap the source. They must tap our minds and what we're thinking. The observer effect. I think nothing is as simple as it has always been laid out as simple spirit communication. Therefore, if they're talking, they must be here. Mm-hmm. It's not like all the physics have been thrown completely out the window.
And we were talking about that with remote viewing and channeling too. Then how would you know if you're actually remote viewing and seeing something, or if there's the phenomena, spirit, whatever, sitting there telling you? If I'm remote viewing you, how do I know I'm remote viewing you, or that there's something, a being sitting there telling me what?
We cannot. We've created the box. This is the problem. We've created the boxes. It's our physics that we're thinking. We think, okay, well, that's what it is, and therefore it must be that. And the problem is that, people have had images placed into their heads. Mm-hmm. People have said, I'm getting an image that there was this incident took place, and it's been associated to a paranormal event that took place 30 years or 60 or 100 years ago that nobody knew about. And through research, we get to find out bits and bobs and confirm that, yes, all right, we relayed information, something relayed that information to us, just as abductees is exactly the same thing. They're suddenly watching television, suddenly they get up, they go, oh, I must go to the window to have a look, and hey, presto.
Yeah.
It's
premonitions that you think you're seeing into the future, and it could just be something sitting there putting the image into your head.
Yeah, I think so. I think that there are people which are picking up on information that's traveling around, a super highway of information, because no premonition has ever been really altered. I'm not aware. I've done a lot of research in premonitions. I've had people say, yeah, but no evidence to support it's ever been changed, because I think the paradox theorem comes into play here. Because how can you have a premonition or precognitive image take place of an event that you've stopped. It's kind of paradoxal, you know. You would never have got it in the first place if you'd stopped it.
Right.
So you've got this conundrum effect. And it's the same thing with all these sci-fi shows when they get into time. You know, it doesn't work, you know. And I've always said, you know, it's paradoxical. You know, why would somebody have a precognitive thought of a disaster that they stopped? Because the event wouldn't have happened. So therefore, all that energy of the incident wouldn't have happened for you to obtain that information. So you have to question the sources. And this goes right back to the Watchers and the Whisperers. You want to go back to biblical or pre-biblical times, it's the Watchers, forever watching us, and it's the Whispers, forever guiding us. Some good, some bad. Some turn up as angels, whispering the Pope's in to go and invade Constantinople, and he goes and kills 38,000 people just because the Pope was listening to an angel that was whispering in his ear. We don't know what they all represent, to be honest, as spiritual beings. You know, they appear to us as the one, people perceive them as the one, but it would seem that they're always interacting, always prodding and making us make changes. And, you know, we've had whispers which have coaxed people into places where people have died. You know, certain sets of caves which we did investigated purposely, because it was known people wouldn't go there because there's whispers that entice you to come in, and our names were called. Our names are called to call in, and we followed. You know, we can't help it. You know, we've got to find out right to a cliff edge in the dark. You know, and you know, and it's calling names. And do you know what was really interesting? As soon as we decided not to go on any further, it didn't happen anymore. The whispers just stopped. The calling of the names stopped. So there are some things which do beckon you from the other side, in a sense of speaking. It's not always great. There are some good experiences. People do have some good experiences, but some of this phenomena isn't, you know, and it kind of achieves its own kicks out of doing things which aren't so good. But the whispers, yeah, they're always present. They never left me since I started in the Phenomena Project and opened that back doorway. The door's always a little bit open now. We hear the whispers. I could be traveling down in a car with somebody, you know, it's quiet in the car, and all of a sudden it'll come out from the back of the car. We did an experiment on the plane once at 38,000 feet, and we got interaction. We got vocals right in front of us at 38,000 feet. So, you know, we were trying to test the limitations of this phenomena. But it over the period of time, it seems to have been very helpful and got more helpful. But then it's kind of invaded the lives to such a degree now that we can just suddenly hear. You know, I went to Ozark in Arkansas. I'm just walking past this tree, and this voice just comes out of this tree, says, "Can you hear me?" And I just turned around and I just ignored it and carried on because I got used to that. You know, I don't open up a dialogue with somebody I don't know, but they've never left since I opened that door. You know, and I'm not psychic or anything. You know, psychic is a doornail. You know what I mean? But like I say, it's not just me. It hears them. You know, people with me will go, "What the hell was that?" I said, "Don't ask."
Oh, interesting.
It is.
All right, Grant's pacing here, so I'll let him take the chair now. Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got a few little questions, then we can let you get back to your regular life. You just mentioned like events happening around you. Are there people who are able to attract this or have more reports around them? And what do you think is going on there?
It's a good question, Grant. Actually, you know, most of these guys are pretty secret, but they do exist. And we have one. We have a secret weapon. You know, when we do certain very traumatic cases of the ufological, the paranormal, we bring in a catalyst. This catalyst that we use has been professionally tested. And he is incredible. I mean, he has a direct source with all phenomena. And when he goes into a place, he's like a sponge. He'll suck out the paranormal incidents in that, and it will manifest around him. You know, so, and I don't know what he communicates. This has always been my argument with this particular character, is that he assures me that he communicates with one particular spirit. My argument with him would be to say, well, you know, we can't list it that, because how do we know? There's no evidence to support that. You know, it is an intelligent source communicating. We've been into, I'll give you an example. We came into a woman's home claiming lots of disturbances were going on. And he went up to the landing, the top of the stairs, and he asked this so-called spirit, was there anything going on in the house? You know, and the voice echoed out of the air, came above him, and said, there's nothing. Which really confused us because we had these fantastic stories about these events going on there. And even when Don went in, he suspected because he kind of went, it's flat in here. He senses the energy associated to ufological and paranormal. He says it's one of the same. And we went down, and eventually we decided to literally, change our methods of interviewing this woman. And she eventually broke down, and she actually admitted she'd made it up because she was trying to relocate the home. She was trying to get the private tenant, the housing association, to move her to another location simply because she was having problems with the neighbour, and she was just using this as an excuse. And she confessed to it, which kind of backed up the claim that, what he had. But yes, there are people out there, they're extremely far and few between, but if you find one, then the idea is that we've proven a shadow of doubt that they have these abilities, but to utilize them in other areas. So we've kept hold of these people like that, and we can utilize them if necessary in traumatic incidents.
Do you see trauma as part, like you can get like a ghost, an event where you have some sort of bizarre event happens there, death or something, and you start getting these phenomena? Do you see that people will propose that there's trauma associated with like mediums who have childhood abuse issues and stuff like that? Do you see that kind of stuff where they're open?
It would seem that we are imprinting into our own environments. There are many cases where people have heard strange sounds, or the sounds of things moving in a house that they've lived in for 40 years, and all of a sudden they're starting to hear strange sounds. There's a possibility that you're hearing their own sounds or their own movement at a different time. That was pre-recorded by the phenomena and played back, because audible phenomena, which is played back through poltergeists and hauntings, it tends to be the most regular occurrences. It's the toilet flushing, it's the tap, it's the kettle, it's the bell, it's somebody who and recognize that voice calling you. These are the most common recordable sounds taking place over 24 hours. It's a reoccurring sound. And sometimes they're embedded and the phenomena utilizes what's been embedded, what rises to the surface as much as possible. And it utilizes the most common occurring sounds to play them back. The problem is when people hear these things, our minds put it into a physical sense and say, something's turning the tap on, something's flushing the toilet, the ghost is in the bathroom, and all those things. We've set up video cameras, and at 3:20 in the morning, that toilet does flush. It's recorded on the video camera. But the physical, because the camera's pointing at the flushing system, it didn't actually flush, but the sound generated from it. So this is the problem, because we've got this recordable phenomena that sometimes when we just hear it, we can't ascertain if it's a physical action or not. We do get that on a common basis.
You mentioned a story before with your wife and you at in the kitchen. Can you retell that story?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we were up upstairs. We were watching television. I think it was around about 10 to midnight. And suddenly we heard movement downstairs. We heard, because we have a tiled floor kitchen and wooden chairs, we heard the chair pull out, scraping across the tiled floor. And then we heard pots and pans moving around, and cutlery drawer and all sorts of things. And we knew that we'd already done the pots, and the pots were actually stacked on a drainer. And we listened for all this. We were just listening to it for a good time. And it was just like there was a couple of people in there moving things around. But as soon as we walked to the door, just prior, this is what it does, the observer effect, just prior to me literally touching that handle, quietness. I opened the door. There's not a thing out of place. Sounds to me like it was like a recorded event of probably us doing the pots at some time. A regular thing, a regular sound, and been played back. Because there are occurrences that happen when I go to these locations. Sometimes the phenomena will return. Some bits of phenomena returns with me occasionally. It depends on how saturated I am in one location. If I'm there for a long time, I can be really saturated. And I come back for the first few days, I've got a buzz of stuff, different things happening around, and then it pitters out and kind of disappears. But I think that we bring some of that back because it's just kind of saturated within us in these areas.
Did you have these events before you started researching, like in terms of the hitchhiker phenomena type thing? Or is it since you started getting into
I've always had ufological experiences since I was 7 years of age. And, when seeing a UFO is a common occurrence, it's become so common that, it's just, hey, look, I saw something again today. And they're quite amazing, but there is that interaction. There is that I get up in the early hours, I look out window, something's there, I just kind of have this inkling to look when they're there. I know when it's in certain times when I'm going to certain locations that something would love me to go down road B when I'm actually going down road A, and I've kind of learned to recognize because it's the fight or flight and people are ignoring it. And I tell you why the people are ignoring it, because society is infatuated with refined sugar, and refined sugar nullifies our own senses against fight or flight. That's the skin on our bodies reacts to fear. It's a survival sense. I've come to learn and recognize that if I should go on any further, I might go and see something, and it's up close and personal, and I think, wow, this is fantastic. We're in another positive magnetic anomaly. This thing has just suddenly appeared. It's fantastic. But then 10 minutes in, I might suddenly get that fight or flight response, and I act to it. I get in the car and I go. I don't push it. I don't push the boundaries, because I think some people have lost touch with what is this phenomenon represents, and if it's something good, if it's something bad. I think we've got to listen to ourselves a little bit more, but unfortunately refined sugar nullifies it. So every time I'm going out on an investigation, I make sure for a week or two I'm just away from the old sugar, as best as I possibly can. And it can be difficult sometimes, but as you can well imagine. But yeah, it's all ties into our biological survival sense. It's there. And I think that the fight or flight is purposely created because it's created in people who have abduction experiences. It's created in the animal mutilation cases. I think it is what happens that we're in so much fear. A huge amount of a boost in our immune system actually happens. And when you start to study the mutilation cases, which are still happening, they're happening in the hundreds. We're getting reports even this year that soft tissue is taken from these animals, and it is soft tissue where mucous membranes multiply, and this multiplication of the mucous membranes is where the most information and chemicals are found in regarding the immune system. So it leads me to believe that maybe something is just trying to work out how we do what we do with our immune system. And if that is the case, and everything seems to be pointing towards that is one of the major studies or genders on these programs by these beings, is that maybe that are trying to just find that they can cohabit in our existence for longer than short periods of time, because it seems they're all short periods of time, aren't they? We don't seem to have an event for long. And maybe that's the reasons why, because people say, we're immune from so many different things. Even the common cold could be a killer for someone. So it all falls down to the immunity system. But it is interesting that, it lies in the blood. 4.5 gallons of blood are usually taken out of cattle, doing exsanguinated. That's a lot of blood. It's what's in the blood, I think. And of course, I think with the soft tissue, the blood, the information that we gathered would suggest that it's something on that level of the immunity system.
Okay, 2 more questions. You back to the apport things, or the apports, or whatever you want to call them. Are you proposing any research? Because we're both trying to figure this thing out. Have you got any research that you think might try to solve the problem?
We have. We've done a lot of research in this. We've done it actually 5 different stages of research pushing forward. What we're probably thinking here is that, of course, we can call it, say, throw it into the field of metaphysics, of course, or even quantum entanglement, but which identifying the object for what it really was, we don't know. We don't know if that object comes back. It's even a clone, to be honest with you, at this stage. And what we can say is that something on the physical basis is changing with these objects. That wherever they go or wherever they come back, that transition affects the metabolics or the macroscopic particles within that item, because it's all made of electrons, it's all made of atoms at the end of the day. And we know that we can manipulate atoms and electrons at a microscopic scale. Even now, we can do that. We can transition 2 or 3 atoms of an apple, take it out, and have it reappear over there now. You know, the Japanese have done this a number of years ago. We're very silent after the project of Apple. Did manage to do that because they were studying this teleportation process. I don't think it's exactly the same method as how we would think it. You know, I think these things might even be there, but just out of phase. We don't see them, we don't hear them, we don't feel them. It doesn't necessarily mean we're there because we're blanketed to only a tiny little bit of information coming into our brains because we're so limited in our perceptions. You know, so something could be there. You know, it might not have actually just disappeared. It's just phased and it's there in a different reality, but coming through. And it's this phenomenon, it's utilizing this same method over and over again. But I have said prior to a number of occasions that the research when we got into stage 1, we went back in time and we had to bring information from the past forward because we've forgotten a lot of the things. We've forgotten why people, thousands of years ago, started utilizing iron to evade, cause an invasion of this phenomena, because they were having, you call it witchcraft, call it paranormal, poltergeist, mutilation cases, cattle mutilations taking place thousands of years ago. We've got reports of them, exactly the same phenomena. That when they started banging iron around in fields to protect cows, when they started iron nails around bedrooms with paranormal phenomena, be it ufological, paranormal, there was an invasion to iron, hence the horseshoe, which we think is a lucky symbol. It was only because it was made of iron, and it was placed above doorways purposely to ward away spirits. And then in medieval times, they took it forward and said, okay, we really need to separate the living from the dead because that's a different realm, a different reality. Same things that we want to evade from. So then we start putting iron gates and railings around churches and that sort of thing. It's even gone one forward into the 20th century. We've even managed people who have come to us and said about their experiences about, they believe they're having some type of alien abduction types of experience. We've asked them to wear iron, around on the chest, on the pendants and those sort of things. And they come back to us and said, you know what, it's amazing. I've not had those disturbances since I've not seen something. I've not had that feeling of being watched and these sort of things whilst they've been wearing it. And we've seen a very high success rate in regarding this phenomenon evading iron. So at this very moment in time, our research is going into the resonant frequencies of things. So it's all, a lot of this phenomenon is all sound. It's all sound and resonant frequencies, just as UFOs emitting infrasound, which causes insects to go suddenly silent. We have those experiences that suddenly everything went very quiet. Well, they're emitting an infrasound that we can't hear. In other words, I'm here, everything in that environment's hearing it, but you're not. And we're thinking we're the ones, everything's dropped quiet. It's basically, it's a natural process. We can produce it in an infrasound level, but we can't hear it because we are so limited. It's our senses is one of the biggest problems regarding this phenomenon because it acts outside of our senses. Some of this phenomenon seems to be coming from the infrared side. Some of this phenomenon coming from the ultraviolet side, more so on the infrared because we're a little bit more, we can see a little bit more of the infrared than we can the ultraviolet. And some of this phenomena, this paranormal phenomenon, when we bring ultraviolet lights in, it evades. It's like, oh, and it's gone very quiet. But people can't sit in a house for the rest of their lives with ultraviolet lights on, I understand. But it is an evasion. And it would seem that if you deter them long enough, they'll just go elsewhere. That's what happens with poltergeist phenomena. It comes, it burns itself out. I've done what I need to do and goodbye. And it would seem there's all these connections. So resonant frequencies, infrasound, we know about resonance chambers, ancient resonance chambers built on these magnetic portals, these areas, which are being scientifically proven now. That NASA sent 4 satellites up into orbit for about 3 or 4 years ago, 2014, to measure what they refer to as electron diffused regions. An electron diffused region is a portal. It's a stable portal, and they lie between the Earth and the Sun. But when we started looking at that, hang on a second. We've got over 4,000 photographs from SOHO satellites and other satellites out there filming UFOs that seem to be hanging around the sun or coming out of the sun. They seem to be coming out of them. And I'm thinking to myself, well, hang on, the sun is just one great big magnetic doorway. Maybe that's the key. Maybe they're utilizing the sun. Magnetics, there's a small, highly concentrated cluster of magnetic anomalies on the far side of the moon. Hence the strange sounds that the Apollo 10 astronauts picked up when you follow the trajectory, they were flying right over that thing when they picked up those sound resonant frequencies. I don't think it's by chance. The ancients knew a lot more than what we currently do. And they knew these doorways are active. They knew that some things come through these doorways. They sacrificed people. When they were sacrificing women, most of all, during the menstrual cycle, because there's less iron in the body. They knew a lot that we've forgotten about this phenomenon and its interaction. But some of these doorways are very much still active, very much.
Okay. Last question. You got to tell me the story about the feather.
Strange coincidences. I'm outside of course, we visited Starworks USA conference, and I was lecturing there. Came outside for a bit of a break, get some fresh air, and I'm outside chatting with a number of people and my partner, and I'm purely just a small white feather just drops like so, right? And it's here. It's literally a foot in front of the face. And it just glides. There's no breeze really. And it's funny because there was a bit of a breeze earlier today, but it just came straight down and landed on the floor. But as it's coming down, my eyesight, looking at this feather, just a foot or so away from my face, something catches my eye, and I lose the tracking of the feather because I've stopped, because I'm still looking in the sky. There's something there. And I'm looking at this, and Jackie's saying, I can see this. And I'm saying, yeah, I can see it. And it was a ball of light. It was stationary for a few minutes. It never moved. It was perfectly stationary. And it just sat there. And then it just blinked out as if somebody switched off a light. But to come down right in the traction of where this feather was, and of course, we've been talking about feathers earlier in the day, because it's not the first time feathers have actually dropped in front of us. We've had that on numerous occasions. And sometimes it's usually an indicator for me to ring somebody in the family. Because I've had, for most of the time, I learned this because sometimes a feather is dropped and it's dropped in my house. Where's the feather come from when it drops in your house? I can understand outside the bird being around. But when it drops in your house and you suddenly see this, 5 minutes later, somebody rings from the family saying, "Oh, your uncle's in hospital. He's broke his leg, or something's happened, or there's usually something." When I see this now, I ring. I don't know who to ring. I ring my mum or ring my dad. And I say, is everything all right? Usually, there's something associated with this within a 24-hour period. But when some of these things drop in your house, you just don't know where they're going to come from.
It's pretty bizarre.
But yeah, it was very strange to see this and this thing up in the sky for a few minutes before it just blinked out. Sunniest of days, people walking around. It was interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, I thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll see you down the road at some conference somewhere. What are you doing next?
At Conscious Life Expo, February. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be delivering. I'm going to be delivering the next stage of our training course, the Conscious Life Expo. I delivered stage 1 at Paula's event. We've pushed in a little bit more into the other areas. We're going to be delivering that and doing a couple of lectures in the UFO panel and so on and so forth.
Wow, I'll see you there. I'll be there. So I'll see you in February.
Wonderful, Grant. Okay, great talking to you guys.
Beautiful.
I'll talk to you soon. Take care.